just to quickly crack on. So I would like to start with a bit of what inspired me, what inspired today's topic really. I think I've given a bit about that in my earlier introduction of the topic, but it's simply because I used to run a social enterprise some 7 years ago now, where we operate, we started, it's a couple of me and a couple of other guys, we started an event booking platform. We called it by that time eventstop.ng. This was in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm from Lagos originally. And we were initially running it as a business. We acquired a lot of venues on our website, and we let people book it, and we charge commissions from their booking. But a few months after running it as a business, we discovered that there is also kind of a social gap that we feel like we could actually use our startup to also kind of address. And that was promoting accessibility for disabled people into public event spaces. Because we kind of noticed that, when we go to events, all these parties that people book our events for, use our platform to book venues for, we hardly find, it being disabled friendly. Let's put it that way. Most of the event spaces don't have parking spaces dedicated to disabled people like you have in most of the developed countries here. They don't have good walkways for disabled people. Some of them that could be using a wheelchair, they will have to go on staircases with a wheelchair. Some venues don't even have a lift, and you have to go to the venue upstairs. So we kind of feel like we could make a change by using our platform to kind of advocate for promoting accessibilities in venues across Nigeria was our goal. But we soon ran into troubled waters anyway. When we tried to change that model to become what you will call today a social enterprise. Then we didn't know about a social enterprise, but what you will call today a social enterprise. We struggled with it, and the team broke up. And as a result of that, we all went our separate ways. And I decided to research more about organizations like this. I was interested in say, how do you run this? How do you organize this? What will make them work in a place like Africa? I don't want to go into the challenges we went through that led to us actually then stopping the organization, because we will waste the whole time today doing that. But it drove my passion to research about them, and I went on a PhD course, like Edwin rightly said, and that for the last 4 or 5 years now, I've been researching social enterprises and in Africa. So in my research journey, I've come across a lot of questions that a lot of social enterprises, or anybody that I talk to, even my friends and colleagues, and what will you call a social enterprise in Africa? What is that? There is nothing like that. There is a business, they are all businesses, or they are all either NGOs. And I get this question a lot as well from Africans themselves, from Nigerians, from people from Cameroon, Ghana, and all saying, we don't have that here. We don't recognize them here. We're either for profit or we're either non-profit. And I feel troubled, because I feel like there are lots of organizations there that are doing amazing things. They might not have identified themselves as a social enterprise, and there are reasons for that, but they are doing something that is actually very similar to what is called a social enterprise in a concept or in other parts of the world that are more developed, and they've really researched this idea. So that led to this topic. And questions such as, what is a social enterprise in an African context? Is it a Western idea? Is it an NGO, or can they also run as a business? It would be nice to get your thoughts on this later on as well, because I'm sure a lot of you probably have these questions also running through your mind. How are they different from existing businesses? And do they also pursue environmental goals? Edwin said something there earlier about environmental goals as well. I think it's also hard for discussion to actually say, is this really the purpose of a social enterprise? Do they actually have the inclusion of environmental goals also? So social enterprises have been well studied across, mostly in the Western countries. A lot of countries here have actually studied this concept a lot, and they've understood it a lot, more than we have actually in Africa, more than we have done in Africa. There is a paucity of research on social enterprises in African countries context generally, and we need to improve that. And they are widely understood as companies or organizations that uses business mechanisms. So they use the means of business. So they use commercial means like trading, like services, selling products. And they use that as a way to get money, funds, resources to be able to tackle an urgent or a serious social problems, whether at the community level, at all levels of society, really. You find these kind of organizations solving huge social. And, the narrative is they do do social and also environmental problems. We will discuss more about that in a bit. And also the creation of social and environmental value from that. So by tackling those social problems and environmental problems, they create social value. Take people out of poverty, help people out of poverty, promote gender inclusivity, help children get into school, access to school, empower women, empower children. So they create all this social value by using, income generating means, such as from businesses. And also a recent study kind of found that there are sort of 11 million of them that are sort of operating across the world. And this study is quite good because it actually said, you'll find some of them also in Africa. So you find some of them as well in Africa. And it's hugely promoted. You have the Mohammed Yunus Foundation promoting it a lot. You have Ashoka, you have Social Enterprise UK, and a lot of them that actually have promoted this concept over the years. So it's not something new. It's actually something that has been there and that, it's well promoted in most parts of the world like this than in Africa, right? But there are questions, like I said, there are still a lot of misconceptions. Despite this huge work that has been done on it, mostly in the Western part of the world, there are still questions, especially in Africa, people saying, is this applicable in an African context with all the huge issues that we have, challenges that we have that are social and environmental in nature? Can you apply a social enterprise concept to tackle them? So let's look at the first one, right? Is it an organization or is it a concept? The myth is that it is an organization. There's a misconception there. And that's why people will say, you can't find these kind of organizations in Africa because they just don't exist. You are either a non-profit or you are either a for-profit. That's why, this myth has always been there. But, yes, they are an organization and there are organizational forms that recognizes these organizations. So like your company limited by guarantee, your company limited by shares, and even in some parts of Africa. So you'll find the CLG and CLS legal forms here, like in the UK. Any organization that registers as a CLG or a CLS is automatically classified as a social enterprise. So you do find them here as an organization because you have the appropriate legal forms to recognize them, right? In Africa, you have some NGOs that also register as a CLG and CLS as well. And those organizations, I believe, can also kind of involve themselves in income generating activities, but I guess they cannot share the profit as well because they are an NGO. That kind of form exists in Africa, but they don't call themselves a social enterprise, right? So yes, they are an organization, but they are also a concept. So that person is completely right. Yes, in Africa, I think it's important that we start to see it as a concept. You see, that's one of the goals of my presentation today, is that until we start to see it beyond as an organization, but as a concept, we will never, or we will always struggle with the fact that it exists already in Africa. We will always, because we will looking for organizations and there is no organization that is clearly labeled, in their legal form as a social enterprise, because there is none. In most African countries, I think some countries are starting to wake up to the idea, but in the legal form that is recognized by the government, you don't really have any for the social enterprise like you will here, like you do here in the UK. So yes, it's a concept and it is derived from established tradition. You see, it's a concept that has long traditions. Examples, I will give you quick examples like the Arambi of Kenya. I don't know if you are Kenyan and you are in this room, you probably will know the Arambi, and it's in your coat of arms there. It basically means all pulled together in Swahili. You have the Noboa in Ghana. So Edwin, you probably will know about the Noboa, which is basically it means mutual assistance in weeding. So it's like a farming. It's used among farmers, where they all come together to help each other. Maybe during harvesting or during planting or something like that. Ajo, I know Ajo very well. You and all my Nigerian Yoruba people here know Ajo. Ajo used to be way back in the day. I could remember as a child, and we come together, we put money together, and the reason why you're doing that is when it's your turn, you collect the money to solve your own your problems. Maybe you want to pay school fees or something like that. So you have all this, and what unites all these traditions together is the social element of them, the bringing together of them, the coming together of them, the connectedness, the mutual aid, mutual assistance, reciprocity, this thing that brings them together. And these are where the concept of a social enterprise sort of came from. It's from values like that, So that is what where the concept initially was derived from and now made into an organizational form in some developed part of the world. So, but if we don't start to think of it as a concept, we will not know that you actually have these values in most organizations already. That is central in actually how they organize. They bring together people together, they bring children together, they bring women together, and they empower them, they train them, and that is basically what's at the root or at the bottom of most of this tradition here. So I think we need to start to think and correct this myth that it's only an organization, but it is also a concept. Number two is that it includes both social and environmental goal. I think this is important, so important. And if you look at the diagram I have on the side from a research in 2014, you can see they differentiated between what a social enterprise is and what an environmental enterprise is. And they kind of say that in most African countries, you kind of have an hybrid form of organization or sustainable enterprises where they kind of do kind of both, right? But this study is quite good. But I strongly feel from my research that I've done over the past 4 or 5 years, I see social enterprises as actually centrally addressing social problems. I think we start to get confused when we move towards. And this is the reason why it's so hard to define a social enterprise, even in the Western context here, because we keep on coming up with all these different things and adding it to the definition, and it complicates it. Social enterprise do social. They focus on social, even if they are involved in environmental initiatives or they are using environmental resources or means. They are focused on social. They are doing it because of people. So, for example, this organization I worked with in Lagos called Recyclers, some of you probably know them, basically use waste, right? They are into waste recycling. They let households collect waste and then they sell the waste and use the money from it to kind of pay the household back with some certain points or something like that. And if you can see on their website what they have there, they said people living in slum. So you can see it's all social. People living in slum. You can see spread of diseases. You can see disposed trash and how it is clogging gutters and drainages and causing floods to happen. You can see how they say diseases then spread. You can see where they're talking about trash fires. So all these are, they are social elements, right? So that is the reason why they feel like we need to deal with this problem of waste. Waste is sort of like an environmental kind of like a goal. They're doing that. They're controlling pollution. Yes, we know. But the reason why they're doing all that is to avoid or to kind of eliminate all of these problems here. To say, okay, how can we make sure that this waste becomes something that low-income communities actually get money from? And by controlling the pollution of this waste ending up there, we can do this and this and this for these people. So that's central, core, important, goal there that they're actually chasing. And so I think it's important when we talk about social enterprises to not kind of say, oh, they do this and they do environment. No, there's nothing wrong in that, but we need to be clear that their purpose and their reason for existence is social, is the people. That is what they basically, and if you look at from the past tradition I shared as well, it's about bringing people together, empowering people, moving people forward. It's all about people. So even if they involve themselves in environmental initiative, it is to help people. So I think that's important. Now, myth 3 that I would like to clarify is it is not a Western concept, and you can see that with this hand signal here. Initially, when the social enterprise concept was conceptualized, people were, saying that it is people like this, Charles Ligby, that kind of came up with the concept. So people then think maybe is it a Western concept because it was formulated by these early scholars. But no, it is not. I think I talked to you about Arambi, the Oboa, the Ajo, the Mahaba, all these different traditions that has long existed in Africa. So you have them. But also, if you think of social enterprise as existing between the spectrum of, you see where you have the non-profit with income generating activities here, and the corporation practices social responsibility here, you start to see why some organizations in your community could be classified as a social enterprise, because it's all about, is the social and the commercial, is it integrated? Is it fused together? Or is it differentiated? Because there are different forms of it. So regardless of the legal form, so whether you are an NGO or you are for-profit, yeah? But in your organizing, in what you do, did you fuse your social with your commercial together? Are they fused or are they separated? And this is what all these different organizational form represents. So if you are an NGO, for example, let's go on this left-hand side. If you're an NGO, registered to the government as an NGO, but you are involved in some income-generating activities, so that will sort of make you like, that's sort of differentiated. So you are doing your NGO, you are maybe advancing women's rights, for example, but while you're doing that, you have a side business you're doing as well, which is then funding the women's rights movement that you are doing. You classify yourself somewhat here. Your organizational form is somewhat like a non-profit, but that has income-generating activities on the side. But the integrated form of that will be this, where the social purpose you are advancing is where you also get money from, even though you are registered as an NGO. And then you have the same as well on the for-profit side, so which is this right-hand side. Your socially responsible business will be the integrated commercial social one, and your corporation practicing social responsibility. But I need to say that, but social responsibility is core, is central. It's not a byproduct like most big companies do there. So I hope when you start to think of social enterprises along the spectrum, you start to see them in your community, you start to see that it is not a Western concept. We actually have them all around Africa. It's just that they have not been given the right place in society, or the right identity yet, which we hope at some point we'll get there. Yeah, quickly run through myths 4 and 5 really quickly. No, they are not democratically, they don't only democratically make decisions, because there's a myth there that all social enterprises must democratically make decisions. And that means because of the social element there, they must come together, like your Ajo that I said earlier, or in your Noboa, they must always come together to make a decision. No, nowadays, social enterprise has sort of advanced to the point whereby it is privately owned, and these guys privately governed as well, and they all make their own decisions. They don't do it democratically in all cases. And also that they cannot share profit. No, as well. Of course, there are social enterprises that are, like I said, are privately owned, they're privately registered, they're registered as a limited company, and that gives them the right to be able to share their profit, But it's just that these guys are so concerned about the social cost. Most of them are so concerned about the social issues. It's central to them, like we said, and they try to make sure that they also invest their profit back into their social purpose. But they can if they want to. In fact, in their legal form already, they would have already even splitted the form. Splitted the shares already. That you get 100%, I get 80%, and all is already shared. So I think we need to correct the myth that they can't share profit. No, they can. But they also make sure that they invest a sizable proportion into their social goals as well. So with this, I've kind of talked about the 5 myths that I think are important for us to address. There are many of them, but I just highlighted this singled out these 5, and I hope from it you'll be able to kind of start to see some organizations around you, or even your organizations that you run, and why you could you could self-identify yourself as a social enterprise, even though there is no legal form specifically for that yet in your countries. So now I'll quickly talk about, there are principles that sort of differentiates organizations from another, and I think it's important that we discuss this simply because we are, like I said, there is misconception about what a social enterprise is, and there's a need for us to say, okay, what are the principles that stands them out from a business? What are the principles that stands them out from an NGO? And there are research that has been done in most developed parts of the world about what the principles of a social enterprise are, and I will just show you some really quickly. So it is, they must have a clear social and environmental mission. They must generate most of their income through trade. They must reinvest the majority of their profits back into their social or environmental mission. They must be free, also be majorly controlled in the interest of the social mission, and be accountable and transparent. So this is from a study. The link is there, and it's well understood in most parts of the world and used to differentiate a social enterprise from a business or from an NGO in this part of the world. So I felt like we could adapt this, and we could start to have this discussion for the African context, and that is what I've tried to do in this slide. So in Africa, most African countries, social enterprises should definitely have a clear social mission. If you truly, identify or want to identify as a social enterprise, this should just be part of the values that drives you to say, I'm going to make my social mission important, and I will make sure it's reflective in my culture, organizational culture. It's reflective in the values that guide my organizations and my staff. It's something that me and my workers discuss on a daily basis, that how are we meeting our social purpose. We measure it as well, and we publish this, we make it visible to people, so that people can see that we are about the social mission, not just making money, right? Generate income, of course, through trade. That's important. They sell, but because we're in Africa as well, you might not make enough money from trade. Okay, so you need to supplement that with grants and donations. Okay, wherever you could access them from. They should have a profit sharing mechanism. Obviously, because some of them will probably register as a business anyway, so they should be able to share their profit, okay, but they should also make sure that the sharing mechanism also supports. So if you really are passionate about the social mission, you should make it show, even in the way you share your profit as well, and also be privately or majority controlled. So you can have a board of trustees, or a board of advisors, where you make decisions together, or you can also make your decisions privately as well. If you have a co-founders situation where you can discuss with your fellow co-founder, both of you make a decision that for a particular company, and also be transparent and be accountable. Yes, I think that's also very important. Let people see what you're doing, that you are not just about money. You have to make people know. You have to do that through different means. So we're going to look at the different means you can do that now in the examples. So from my own research, I looked at social enterprises that work in waste. So I spoke to organizations like recyclers, like Recycle Points, like Green Hill Recycling, all operating in Lagos, in Nigeria. And I've kind of applied those principles that I just shared with you now to the organizations, so that you can start to contextualize how you can apply to your own organization as well, or to organizations in your community, in your countries, and be able to say, okay, maybe this as like a social enterprise idea or model. They might not recognize themselves as that, but they do, right? So social mission of this organization is they are set out. You can check their website later after this as well to confirm. They're set out to help low-income communities to get value from their waste. So even though they are addressing the waste problems, which is more like an environmental thing, but their reason for doing that is to make sure that the low-income neighborhoods, communities, households can make money from that waste that they collect, can start to generate income from it, and to help them pay their school fees, pay their hospital bills, and all that. So that is their social mission. That is very important. Speak to any of these guys, they will tell you that's why they exist. Income generation, selling of processed waste, which is trade. Of course, the business means is to trade, but of course they know that they can't get enough money from trading those. The profit margin of trading waste is very tiny. It's very, very small. You can't sustain any organization. So that's why they added a lot. They are all recipients of multiple awards. They've won a lot of awards, these organizations, and of course they are always funded awards. So governance and profit sharing, all of them are registered as a limited company, so they are privately governed and they privately make their own decisions. And they also have profit sharing mechanisms among themselves, and also reinvest as well in their social mission. So accountability and transparency also, they do regular audits. They open up their facility for people to visit. So you can come and visit them. They will show you around what they do. They don't hide anything. They are very transparent, very open, that this is what we do. This is our business model. If you ask them, they'll tell you what their business model is. If you want to learn even how to do their business, some of them, if they have the space for that, they used to do that. They will allow you to come and study their organization, so that you can probably go and do it in your own countries as well. If you reach out to them, some of them will probably be happy to do that for you. And they have weekly reports as well that they share with the government, so that government can confirm what they are claiming to be doing. So you can see that they are very open. So these are the ways they show their accountability and their transparency, which is very important for anyone in any African country that identifies as a social enterprise to also follow. AfriKids is an example of an organization in Ghana. Their social mission is to help children at risk in northern Ghana. And because they are registered as an NGO, so donation is one of the central way they get money, because that's what NGOs do, right? They raise donations. But they also have enterprise activity on the side. So you could call them like this organizational form that I showed you earlier, which is social enterprise, NGO with an income generating activity on the side. So it's like the differentiated model that I showed you in that spectrum earlier, if some of you can still remember. So so they do that. So they do enterprise, they do sell, they have products and services that they sell on the side. They also do this recycled loan system, where they sponsor probably maybe a child through an educational, through education. And then when the person gets a job later on, can sort of pay back the loan, and then they use the payback to sort of fund another child to go. So they have this recycled loan system as well that they do, which is another way they generate money. They are an NGO, obviously, but they have a board where they democratically make decisions as well. So they don't really privately make decisions, and it's a not-for-profit. So there's no sort of profit sharing mechanism here, because they're not for profit. They don't organize themselves to make profit. And their accountability, if you go on their website, you'll see all the annual reports, both from the company, but also from all the trustees of the company. Trustees reports are there. The NGO reports are also there. So these are the ways they show their accountability and their transparency.